We have a fabulous panel who's going to educate us, inform us and entertain us. Who would like the first cookie and ask the first question? Look at that. I'm afraid you were too slow, but we'll come back to you for the second question.
Straighter. My arm was
You were straighter. Okay, Matt Pereira. Matt Pereira is going to ask the first question for our panel, please.
Can you tell us what the difference is between the basic functionality of the basic services like Hootsuite and LinkedIn versus the pro versions, and is it worth doing an upgrade from basic to pro? Because we keep have a 30-day trial, but if you don't really know how to use it, is it worth wasting your 30-day trial until you know?
Okay, interesting. Do you want to go first? Or?
Sorry. Is it worth using it until you know? Thank you.
In all of the social networks model, the business models are called PUPO, P-U-P-O, which is pay up or piss off. That's the business model they use. What they're failing to do at the moment, they're still failing to educate people on what the virtue is of the payment. And they expect you to learn it from observation, but you can't see the benefit until you make the payment. I have subscribed to LinkedIn and I have subscribed to Hootsuite. I no longer subscribe to LinkedIn because I know everyone. So that's one of the reasons why I don't. But with Hootsuite, I think the only thing worth paying for, and it is worth paying for, is the fact that you can sort the tweets by Clout score. And it's the only platform you can do that. Now, Clout, old Clout with a C, new Clout with a K, if you like. Old Clout is Black Book, new Clout is Social Black Book. The ability to be able to sort your tweets by Clout score, to me, is worth paying for. Because you can sort hashtags, you can sort vertical markets, you can sort geographies, and you can see who are the smart people online in your niche, be it in Guildford or in the hotel industry, and by setting a score, in my particular case, it has to be above 70. But if you set a score, then you can find all the top people who are socially aware in your chosen niche. Either hire them or work with them. But I think that one feature is worth paying for on Hootsuite. With LinkedIn, I think it's to do with the size of your network. If you're already very well connected, arguably it's not worth it. And January the 14th, 2004, they banned me having any more than 30,000 contacts phone me to tell me I wasn't allowed to have any more, because if I had any more, no one would have to pay, because they just come through me. So I've got 30,000 since January 14th, 2004, and I've got 90,000 waiting. So for all those I haven't accepted, I'm sorry, but I can't. I think if you're not at that point where you're short of connections or you're expanding into a new market, then it's worth paying for.
I would just add, I don't have the pro version of LinkedIn. I tried it for a little bit and it just seemed to be sapping money away from me, and for me there wasn't any great benefit, because most of the people that I connect with people on LinkedIn that I know personally. I'm meeting networking and I just connect with them. So I don't use LinkedIn in that way, but if you are trying to reach out to more people and trying to use LinkedIn for search marketing, I know that recruitment consultants desperately need the paid version of LinkedIn. So in that case, it would be worth it. But probably for most people who do networking and things like that, it's not going to be a huge benefit.
Can I comment on that? My name is Kathy Richardson and I've worked in recruitment, I regret to say, most of my life. I've been on LinkedIn since I think I was one of the very first members, and my network has grown through that. But I think LinkedIn have devalued the quality of networking by allowing recruiters the access that they have, because it's a very costly investment for a recruitment company, and it's become like a massive database, which is a bit sad, I think, because I don't know if anybody here has had approaches by recruitment consultants. People have approached me, and I am a recruiter, and I just don't know whether it's actually, I think for me, certainly devalued some of what LinkedIn was before the recruitment access, which was a proper social network. Don't know if anyone has any views.
on that,
Well,
but it's
they're
my
at that
bugbear.
point-
Do you want a
they're at
cookie
that
for
point I
that?
was at.
It wasn't a question.
She went up at the end.
That was harsh, wasn't it? Don't worry, they don't listen to me. They still hand out the cookies. No
Do
one
you want
listens
to
to
answer
me.
that gentleman's question anymore? Okay.
I think there's.
Hootsuite.
Yeah, we'll come back to the question from the lady in the front.
Do you Hootsuite? Do you want?
There's one interesting thing on the Clout numbers. There is a plugin for your browser that you can get through Clout that puts the little Clout number against all the people you tweet, which is quite useful because then you can see how active they are on social media. So there is a free one that you can do, but it's not as clever as being able to sort them by number. So we've got a question at the front from this lady.
It
And
only
then
works with Chrome though.
On this topic, I think one of the other, if I'm right, one of the other benefits of going Hootsuite Pro is that if you're running multiple accounts, you can do more on Hootsuite. So if you've got lots of different profiles online, you can do more on Hootsuite Pro than you can on Hootsuite Personal.
That's a good point. That's true.
And for scheduling.
Yeah, I don't have Hootsuite Pro, but I've got Buffer Pro for the scheduling because it's just so useful to be able to schedule an entire week's worth of stuff.
what was that called? Buffer Pro.
Buffer Awesome, actually.
Buffer Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice name.
Yeah. Excellent. So that's Buffer Awesome. Your question.
Yes, spill the beans. How do you do it in your day? When in the day do you tweet or any other social media that you use?
I do all my scheduling at night because that's when I'm most productive. It normally takes me maybe half an hour for whatever I'm doing for. I do it for several clients, I do it for myself. Half an hour for a day, a couple of days worth. And I use a lot of Excel spreadsheets. I record every single tweet that I post out. So then if I'm ever stuck for some more content, I can just go back and use something that I posted a while ago that performed well. And I just plan out a week's worth of stuff, go on to Buffer, schedule things across, copy and paste things across from Buffer. Yeah.
I would say I use all the gaps. The trains, the taxis, the airports, the jets. Anywhere where there's a gap, I'm always on Twitter.
On the phone?
On the phone, yeah. I recommend the bigger phone you can get, the bigger screen you can get.
Yeah, they're getting really big. Mine's the size of my face now. Big phones are useful for that sort of thing.
It's not just the size, it's the battery. The big phone's batteries last a lot longer.
Depends a bit screen is.
I do mine first thing in the morning. I find it's a nice way to ease in. Working from home, if any of you have got home businesses, you might find that it's that kind of thing between getting up and getting the kids off to school, whatever your morning routine is, and then starting work. Social media is a nice way to find out what's happening in the world, ease yourself in, and give yourself a time limit, maybe half an hour, and do the scheduling. I do that too, and then I'll pop back at different times during the day when I've got a few minutes just to reply to people, take part in conversations, just so they know you're there, but don't spend ages and ages on it. And I much prefer Twitter to any other platform, and that's the one. That's how I've built my contacts. That's how I've built my blog.
The other time freer-upper, if you like, is replace email with Twitter. If you can say goodbye to email, and I did that in 2010, you'll find that Twitter can fully replace your email, and you actually say less.
And don't get your notifications sent to a lot of different places. I get all my notifications sent to my phone, so I know I can see that, and then I don't have to go and delete a load of notifications that I've already seen on my phone, and then I get them instantly as well, so I can reply straight away.
Very good.
Excellent. Just double checking, can you hear at the back okay? Yes, because I noticed you leaning in a bit. That was you concentrating.
That's keenness.
That's keen. I thought maybe it was deafness, not keenness. We have got a mic as well if you need it, but they said they're okay at the back. Okay, so we've got one question here and then I'll come to you second. Is that okay? Perfect. Okay, so a question from the front here.
This is following on the subject matter just now. Oh, I get
She doesn't ask the question yet.
I haven't done anything yet.
You said to reschedule tweets that perform well. What do you consider the criteria for performing well? Whether you've got an answer, whether it's been a favourite or... What?
Well, the most important thing for me is if it's so, for example, a blog post on my website, click-throughs and reading the things, and then sharing the post is the most important thing someone can do. Any post that someone shared, I think is obviously a really good post that I've written. And then comments as well, and then likes being the sort of the least important, because anyone can just click like on something or favourite something or whatever.
I would say with board directors, I set them up for bad news. So in Twitter, in advanced search, you can set up the option of a negative sentiment.
Right.
So you select the negative sentiment and you search, then you save that search, which is all the bad news about your company. Because my experience is directors do nothing about good news other than go, great. But with bad news, they act. So I then set the bad news alerts to their SMS, because they respond to SMS or WhatsApp, something like that. And so Twitter's sending them bad news about their company immediately in real time, and that causes them to react. So I set them up like that.
Hadn't thought of that. Well, I hope that you don't have too much bad news.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of bad news about you and your company online all the time, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We had a question from the middle here, and then we'll come right to the back.
It was back on the point prior when you were talking about when you schedule, when you find time to use Twitter and stuff. Particularly in Twitter, from your experience, isn't there like within the week more trends when it is better to be on Twitter, so therefore you schedule certain points? So from your experience, when are those trends? Which days are more popular, or what times of the day would you say stand out in your mind during the week?
Well, in terms of the United States, your peak time of the gossip coming is when they're rising and engaging. So it's between 2:30 and 4:30. So when the rattle begins, if you like, that's the best time to engage with North Americans, and obviously after 4 for Californians. But it depends on your market. If they're in New Zealand, the hobbits are 13 hours ahead of us, so you have to speak when they're coming out of their grass huts. So it depends on the location, but the peak times are Tuesdays and Thursdays on Twitter.
But in general, it does depend on your industry, the sort of people you're targeting. And there's some really good tools that you can use to find out when people are online and when's best for you to post. For Twitter, there's a really good tool called Twiriad, which you can use to find out when the most people, based on when your followers are tweeting, when they're online.
What was it again?
Twiriad.
Like period, but with a TW.
Yeah.
Is there a question or a comment?
I can add to that.
Cool.
One of the best things to look around if you've got a consumer focus in your marketing is think about all the programs on TV that capture the zeitgeist. So when Britain's Got Talent on, EastEnders Live is on. If you've got something you can piggyback on the end of that, the amount of people that will be searching that hashtag is a brilliant way, like The Apprentice, if you're selling some kind of consulting business. You get on that wave of the hashtag on The Apprentice on there. Everybody's watching that, they're thinking about that, their mind is more open to that proposition. So think about when the kettle goes on, when they're going to make a cup of tea when there's a break between the adverts, when is everybody watching the telly? Because that's a way of community watching things in bulk.
You're right.
And on that topic, there's been a huge surge in the number of Twitter chats that are going on, things like Surrey Hour, Guildford Hour, Woking Hour. Going on those and connecting with local people in the area is a really great way to promote it. Surrey chats.
You are right. Those chats are getting increasingly popular because they're like 1 hour radio shows dedicated to a topic in a location when everyone's in the pub.
Key to that is chat, not broadcast.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. We had a question from our lean-in lady at the back.
Miss Purple.
Sorry, I was just wondering about Facebook and dark posts and that sort of element. Do you think it's worthwhile? Because I'm advertising more and more through a paying, and I didn't quite understand the whole dark post thing. So
What was the question? You said dark.
Facebook
dark.
and dark posts. So instead of paying for adverts, a lot of my clients, I think, from Facebook rather than Twitter, age, my age range.
ideas, to be honest.
Dark
By dark
posts.
posts, do you mean just organic posts,
No,
or do you mean
dark posts
posts that other
It's
people
not-
are?
Yeah, should
Yeah.
I answer that question?
Sorry.
Yes.
Do you know the answer to the
Yes, I
question?
do know the answer. Okay.
Peggy's in.
What? Okay, should I start?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you can if you
What people refer to as dark posts are like, so they will actually look like, so they are adverts, but you would put a post on Facebook, but instead of publishing it, it will be as an ad. So it's like a sponsored post, and it will appear in people's news feed. So it's not like a little ad on the side. And they're highly, highly effective. They're beating dark posts, which look as though they're part of the Facebook stream, look as though it's an organic part, and they're beating Google AdWords hands down, but obviously it depends on the content you put in there. So you'll create a post, but not publish it, but you do it through the advertising manager on Facebook. Okay?
So there's nothing on it to say it's a sponsored post or anything?
It does say sponsored at the top, but most people don't see that sponsored because it looks like a normal post. Because most people don't necessarily read, so it doesn't look like an ad, it just looks like a normal feed. You're not paying for it. You're not paying for it. Oh, no, you are paying for it.
Oh, so
But
dark
it's-
is the new word for sponsored.
No, sponsored is, well, if you boost a post, that is less effective than putting it in through the ad manager.
So it's just a Facebook paid ad?
It's an ad, but it will appear through the feed, and it's called a dark post because it looks like a normal post, and generally you wouldn't do it so it looks like advertising. It would look like a normal post that you put up, so like with a picture and some writing at the top. Because it's advertising, you wouldn't be allowed to go over the 20% of content of the picture. So quite often people will just have a photograph of themselves, and then the words above, so it looks like a normal post. And that's what people refer to as a dark post. It's basically using the advert manager, you have a post that you don't physically publish, and then it creates it as an ad.
It looks like a post.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're highly, highly, highly
I would say-
What do you click to make sure?
You have to go into, I've just gone blank on the name.
Power
Is it
Editor?
sorry?
Power Editor?
Yeah. So you need to go into Facebook's Power Editor and do it. So it's, if you're just starting out in ads, boosting a post is a lot easier, and you can obviously choose a demographic when you boost a post. It's the easy way to do advertising, but a lot more effective is actually creating blog posts. Okay, well that's
I would just answer in terms of advertising on Facebook, the people I know who do it find it very, very effective because of the targeting is so precise compared with Google AdWords. But they do spend a lot of money on it. So if you are going to do it, it's not a few £100 thing. You have to get serious about it and then decide how you're going to measure what your level of seriousness is.
Well, you can start from as low as £1 a day. So if you just want to test the water.
Yeah, but it does work.
Did you have something to
Just a
add?
comment, all these things work. You've got people go into the functionality, what's it use, buffers, this and that. Why are you doing it? What do you want out of it? Once you know what you want out of it, you can identify the platforms and the strategy around what you need to do. People fall into the do too quickly. You forget what's the reason I want to do and what do I want to get out of social for your business, for your personal connections, business contacts. Once that is clear, then the operational do stuff comes into play. People fall into the do too quickly, do lots of stuff, don't get what they want. Facebook ads, scheduling, and then you wonder it doesn't work.
It's a good point Baiju makes, because when people are going online, they tend to be looking for three different things: information, contacts and deals. So if you communicate to people with information, with contacts and deals, you're into their context. And you have to publish into the search. So you have to publish like they're thinking, not like you want to sell your product. So you can't sell the product the way you want to sell it. You've got to sell your product the way they consume it. And that's different. And they call that in the US publishing into the search. And you have to invert the way you're thinking, because the way you sell a product is not the same way we would consume it. And it's quite an inversion to have in your head first before you then put it into a post, a tweet, a blog, a dark post, or whatever it might be.
Example of the negative is that example, because you want to give good stuff, make them look good. The top identified actually the action is taken from some negative
Yeah, if you, particularly with FTSE 100 directors, you give them bad news from important people, they respond. Good news, not interested.
Okay, we have a question from the front row here. Yes.
It's just following on from that conversation. So one of the things that would be a pretty good output from today is just a basic model, a recommendation for a small business. This is what you should do. And that's in the context of cost, opportunity cost alternatives. So just to bring it back as a small business, because I don't know, as a small business owner, I can fund SEO optimization, I can find pay-per-click, I can do it in Google, I can do it in Facebook. I really like the conversation about getting into the search, but what would be really good is, I know it's difficult to come up with a one recommendation fits all, but for any business owner that's in this room, they probably want to go away with, here's the basic model of doing stuff that's relatively cost effective, so a couple of £100 a month. This is what we recommend in terms of priorities, so Twitter, do this, do this, do this, and then scale out with how much money you've got.
My worry is it's not.
I know it's difficult.
The question's the wrong question. They're not work. The systems are not working like that.
Yeah.
It's not a process. Oh, I must put the bins out on Monday night. It's not like that.
No, I know. But as a business owner, do I invest in SEO? Do I invest in social media? Do I invest in pay-per-click?
The most important thing to invest in is chat.
Chat.
By a mile.
Chat.
Give time to chat. Because Facebook, Twitter, they are sophisticated pubs.
Yeah.
And when you walk into a pub, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm a plumber." "Oh, I'm a plumber." "Oh, I'm a plumber." He said plumber. He said plumber. I'm a plumber. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that in a pub. You'd walk into a pub, you'd chat with the landlord, you'd chat to this lady and this lady on the stools next to you. You know, do you come here often? Whatever you might say, but you would get into chat. And
you recommend that over SEO?
Miles better. Miles better. I get 100% of my work through Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. It's purely chat based. Yeah. It's not because I've optimised my post.
Twitter's the biggest cocktail party in the world.
Yeah, he's right.
Al Jackson, the cocktail party. That's on Twitter.
And Thomas says, when you're talking about investing time, you're investing time to do it, but you also have to remember it takes time to get anything back.
Yeah, you're right.
Don't expect stuff overnight, because it's not going to happen. Just like it takes time to build a relationship in the real world, and you don't meet somebody and then instantly say, "Gosh, I really like you, I'm going to give you a huge contract." They have to build trust and like you and know what you do first.
If it is just an extension, if it is chat, do you recommend doing it from yourself, or do you recommend paying for people to do it? So
definitely do it from yourself.
Conversation from yourself, absolutely. There's parts of
Not
social
from the
media
company.
you can outsource, things like looking at analytics, things like training, but well, not, you don't outsource training, you know what I mean. But there's bits you can outsource, but the conversation, especially if you're a small business, has to come from you, because you don't want to build up a relationship with someone, meet them later on, have them start talking to you about something you said on Twitter and you have no idea what it was.
Now, if you think about what happens in a real pub, when you go into a pub and you're, depending on the mood that you're in, you're there for a drink, privacy, reading the paper, look at the fire, chat to people, your mind still is looking up keywords. It's listening for keywords. It hears a match, it says, "Oh, you should speak to." And you do that anyway, because humans are good at that, which is what SEO is, keyword lookup match.
Yeah.
But as soon as you hear the word plumber, you don't say, "Oh, I'm a plumber," because you wouldn't say that. You might say, "Well, I can recommend somebody if you need one," right? Which would be chat. But if they didn't respond, you wouldn't say, you wouldn't say it again. So learning the application of pub chat in Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these systems is the key skill. Way ahead of optimization process and the £200 a month special process for small businesses, bronze version, £400 silver. It's bollocks, that is. You've got to learn skilled chat.
You're basically taking social proof and taking it from the pub.
You are, yes. And if you think about your behaviour in a pub, it's very, very different to your behaviour in a boardroom or even in a restaurant. And these are pubs, first and foremost.
So we'll have one more question, and then I think we'll give away the signed book, and then we'll have a coffee and a tea break, because I think that's important as well. So yes, please, your question.
It's just building on from that. So I'm quite new to Twitter, and I totally buy into the chatting. And I chat a lot at the moment, joining with Twitter parties, etc. But I don't talk about my business. So at what point, and I've kind of heard of the 80% chat, 20% about your business, at what point do you start as a small business talking about your business, or don't you, or do you just chat, or?
I would actually say you don't need to, because until they ask, they're not ready. And you can't do it based on, well, you said plumber, so you can't do it like that. You have to.
Chats, social.
It's based on the law of stepping forward. Until somebody says, could I ask you about this, or can you recommend someone for that, or do you know how I could fix this problem, you're not at the point of saying, oh, I can fix that problem, or these ladies could fix this problem. And you have to wait until your conversation reaches that point, which is what you would do in a pub. You wouldn't take your business cards to a pub, but you would take them if somebody said, could I meet you in the pub and ask you about this? Then you would take them. So it takes a while for people to accept you, and if you think about getting known in a pub, in your actual pub, if you do have a local pub, it can take a year or two, right? Depending on how much time you spend there. And so I think it's the same on these chat forums. You have to give yourself time to be known, to be liked, and to be followed. And don't expect that overnight. Everyone wants to shortcut it. You can't shortcut pubs.
If you were going to a cocktail party tonight, would you plan now the conversation you're having? No. You go with the flow when you see exactly on social. Can't emphasise it so much. Exactly on social. Go with the flow. Be yourself. Be interesting. Be interested. Stuff will come.
And I think what you can do is be interesting about what you do.
Absolutely.
And share interesting things that are coming up in the news about what you do that impinge on your industry. You can make comments, you can share other things, interesting things, other people that you know. Just talk about things, but don't be constantly saying, and I do that, and I do it really well, and you should buy me.
Here to that.
It's like if you're chatting to people, you will tell them things about your day. So if you're doing something interesting within your business, you can mention that, because if you're having conversation with people, you bring that up. But don't just be like, yeah, brand new thing that I've just brought out. Be like, oh yeah, this cool thing happened to me today. That sort of change in tone and attitude.
Excellent.
Nice.
Thank you very much. So please give a round of applause to Judy, Debbie and Robert.